Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Learn, Dream, Do Show. Today, we're looking up into the sky because it's full of stories and because we all know that the stars at night are big and bright.
Deep in the
Deep in the
heart.
heart of Texas. Stick around and have a stellar time with us.
When we think of stars, we think of beautiful little points of light in the night sky. Have you ever wondered what they really are? Well, our sun is a star. It's the closest one to us, so it brings us the most heat and light. Scientifically speaking, a star is a massive ball of plasma, born from the clouds of dust and gas in space called nebulae. If the conditions are right, then a protostar is born. When a protostar is born, it's really unstable. When it gets older, it evens out, and we call these older stars main sequence stars. This is the diagram astronomers use to categorize main sequence stars. See how it's so colorful? That's because stars are different temperatures. Some of them are hotter than others, and that's what makes the color different. Our very own sun is a star, a type G yellow dwarf to be exact. It's right here in the middle of the chart. Scientists who study stars are called astronomers, and their field is called astronomy. Astronomy, according to the American Museum of Natural History, is the study of everything in the universe beyond the Earth's atmosphere. That includes objects we can see with our naked eyes, like the sun, the moon, the planets, and of course, the stars. It also includes objects we can only see with telescopes or other instruments, like faraway galaxies and tiny particles. It even includes questions about things we can't see at all, like dark matter and dark energy. NASA's Space Place has some good information about all kinds of things in space. One of the things we talk about when we talk about stars is their pattern or their formation in the night sky. We call those patterns constellations, and cultures throughout history have created different names and descriptions for the arrangements of stars. The constellations most of us are familiar with were created by people living in the Mediterranean and the Middle East. Many of the stories of the constellations tell us about the myths and legends of the people who gave them names thousands and thousands of years ago. Some of the famous constellations you can see this time of year in the Northern Hemisphere are Andromeda, Cassiopeia, Cepheus, and Pisces. Go check them out!
What shape is a star? Our sun is a star, so it shouldn't come as a surprise that stars are round. Isn't it weird that we draw them with points? Sometimes stars appear as round or as dots in the sky, but often we see them as having points. Some telescopes even see stars that way. Here is a picture taken by the Hubble telescope. See the points? The way we see stars is impacted by tiny imperfections in our eyes, so actually everyone sees stars a little bit differently. Stellar! As long as we've existed on Earth, humans have looked up at the stars and told stories about them. We're going to make up our own constellation and tell a story about it. You're going to need a picture of some stars, so I went to NASA's website and looked in their images and found this one that was taken by the Hubble Space Telescope, or you can look for the astronomy picture of the day. You can also make one at home if you don't have a printer. You can use white paint and a really stiff brush, and I'll show you how to do that. Once you have your space picture, either like this or like this, take a look at it and see if any pictures jump out at you. So you can turn it in different directions, maybe look at it from far away, look at it close up, see if any pictures stand out to you. You'll also need a light-colored drawing implement. I used a white pastel. I also traced the main stars in my picture onto a blank sheet of paper so I could better visualize them. You can do this step if it's helpful. Once you spot the picture you want to make, connect the dots. Constellation pictures are often drawn with just lines between the stars, like this one of Orion. Orion is one of my favorite constellations to find in the night sky. He's easy to pick out with his belt made of 3 stars. This book is actually my favorite about stars and astronomy, and fun fact, it's created by the creator and author of Curious George, H.A. Rey. Highly recommended. But sometimes constellations are drawn with fuller pictures to enhance the line drawing. I'm adding a bit more body to my snake. Once you have your constellation picture, you're ready to tell your story. What will it be about?
It's time for Shakespeare Says.
The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves.
This has been Shakespeare Says.
Have you ever looked into the nighttime sky and seen all those stars way out there in space? It's hard to imagine how big those stars are when they look so small from Earth. It's also hard to wrap your mind around the fact that there are billions and billions and billions of stars in the universe. Our solar system resides within the Milky Way galaxy, and almost all the stars that we see in the nighttime sky are also contained within the Milky Way. These stars have been in our nighttime sky for a very long time. Down here on Earth, people have made up stories about these stars and the shapes that they make for millennia. Let's talk to my friend Jim and find out more about the constellations.
My name is Jim Bader and I work here at the UTA Planetarium. Constellations are just dot-to-dot pictures that people have drawn out between the stars. Throughout history, they've memorized these constellations to help them know what time of the year it was and even what direction they might be traveling. Of the official 88 internationally accepted constellations, most of them can trace their names and origins back to Greek and Roman mythology. However, if you've ever wondered how or maybe why the ancient people imagined for instance, a flying horse in the sky, the answer might be a little more simple than you'd think. It's not that they saw a flying horse or a sea monster in the sky, so much as they needed to memorize the stars so that they could be better at surviving. If you knew the sky, you could know what time of the year it was, when to plant your crops. You could also be better at traveling because you knew which direction you were looking, even in the dark. And this is really helpful. So in order to memorize these groups of stars, they started attaching them to stories they knew from the past. So one great example is Pegasus. Pegasus, the constellation, is mostly 4 bright stars that make a square in the sky. And a square might remind an ancient person of the pen they keep their horses in. And from there, it might remind them of the story of the greatest horse in all of mythology, Pegasus. So they may call that group of stars Pegasus.
All around the world, throughout time, people have looked up to the sky and made stories about the pictures that they saw using the stars. Take for instance the Big Dipper. I bet you know that this constellation is the Big Bear. However, not all cultures around the world saw the same pictures. In the United Kingdom and Ireland, it's called the Plough. In Hindu astronomy, it's called the 7 Great Sages. In an Arabian story, the stars from the bowl represent a coffin, and the 3 stars that make up the handles are mourners following it. Some Native American tribes still saw a bear using the stars that formed the bowl, but the 3 stars forming the handle as 3 mighty hunters. However, some cultures from around the world made up similar stories without having ever met. Take the Pleiades, for instance. This group of 6 bright stars and a 7th dimmer star. In Greek mythology, these 7 stars were known as the 7 Sisters. A similar legend is also told by the Kiowa tribe of North America. Some of the Aboriginal tribes in Australia also saw 7 sisters. It's amazing to think that all these cultures never met, yet they all have very similar stories about these 7 stars. I want to take a moment and talk about my favorite constellation in the night sky. Its name is Canis Minor, or the Little Dog. Let me show you a picture of this constellation. It's made up of 2 stars. That's right, just 2 stars that formed a picture of a small dog. Now, I don't know about you, but it's really hard for my imagination to form a picture of a dog using just 2 stars. So I imagine this constellation as a hot dog, because I can imagine a picture of a hot dog using 2 stars and 1 line. Speaking of making up a constellation, have you ever thought about making your own constellation? You can! However, you have to get outside the bright lights of the city. Cities create a lot of light pollution that makes the light from the stars hard to see. You might be asking, what is light pollution? Light pollution is an overuse of artificial lighting. A way to help cut down on this light pollution is to turn off all outdoor lights when they're not being used. Also, outdoor lights should be pointed down to the ground where it's needed, not up in the sky where we don't. So in order to see the amazing stars in the night sky, you have to get away from the city lights. There you'll have a blank canvas of stars for you to create with. So what pictures will you create, and what stories will you tell?
Possibly the most famous quote from an astronaut was by Neil Armstrong as he set foot on the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Now, when Armstrong returned to Earth, he said that it was supposed to be a man, one small step for a man. But I guess the A got lost among the stars somewhere.
Ah, nature. There's nothing I like more than camping under the stars. Well, I do like sharing stories by the campfire. Look into the sky and you see a group of stars shaped like a half circle. This is a Mohawk tribe, and they have a story about that set of stars. There once was a mighty bear who had everyone frightened. Even the best hunters couldn't catch that bear. And any time he appeared, heavy snows came, and it made it impossible to track him. One night, 3 brothers took off on a secret hunt, and they went out to get that bear. They went out, 3 brothers and their dog G.A. The hunters were so determined to catch that bear that they didn't rest during the day and they didn't sleep during the night. It seemed like they could never get closer to the bear. Finally, they hunted and hunted until they followed the bear to the end of the earth. But they still could not catch up, so they followed the bear into the sky. After such a long journey, the bear was very tired, so he wove an invisible net across the sky and crawled underneath that net to go to sleep. Finally, the hunters caught up to the bear, and they thought that they had caught the elusive bear. They were so happy they cheered. But the bear wasn't sleeping as they had thought. Suddenly, the bear woke up, and the tables had turned. He dragged the net and cast it across the 3 hunters. The hunters and their dog were still up there under that net, and they are continually hunting that bear. And that was the Native American Mohawk story of the constellation called Ursa Major. The next time it's late at night and you look up into the sky, look up for that bear and the 3 hunters, and maybe even their friendly dog G.A. Now that we've heard that wonderful story about Ursa Major and the bear hunt, let's go ahead and make our own visual. Hey, I have an idea. We're camping. So let's go ahead and grab some marshmallows and make a visual of the Ursa Major constellation.
Here we have the constellation of Ursa Major. As you can see, it makes a bear shape. What you will need to make your visual and your craft is some marshmallows and either some toothpicks or some straw, cut up straws. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my marshmallows and I'm going to put it on the stars that I want to connect. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6. Great. Once you have that, all we got to do is take our sticks and connect them. Yummy. And this is a great activity to match up with marshmallows by the campfire, looking at stars. Ooh, I love camping. Okay, here we go. We keep connecting them. Push, push, push. And the fun part is you can always eat some of these. And then one more. Yay! I have a part of Ursa Major, which is the Big Dipper. I challenge you, can you finish the rest of the bear's body using marshmallows and straws? I hope you can. Have fun looking up at the stars.
Do you know what kind of award a star gets? A constellation prize.
Did you know that there are some cities in Texas with names of things that you can find in the solar system? Let's go on a trip to Earth, Saturn, and Pluto, Texas, and discover how these small cities got their name. First stop, Earth, Texas. Earth, Texas is about 400 miles away from Fort Worth, and there's only 1,000 people living in this city. Earth was originally named Fairlawn, but the town needed a new name because there was already a city with that same name. The people in the city sent in suggestions, and Earth, Texas was chosen. Let's jump back in the car and head on over to Venus, Texas. Whoa, we probably should have come here first. Venus, Texas is 35 minutes away from Fort Worth, and almost 4,000 people live here. Venus was originally named Gossip, but the name was changed in the 1880s when a man came and purchased a lot of land and changed the name to Venus, Texas. Venus was the name of a local doctor's daughter. Now let's jump back in the car and head over to our last stop, Pluto. Hello? Anyone here? I was completely lost on the way here because Pluto, Texas is a ghost town and it's not really found on any maps. In spite of how it sounds, a ghost town is a city with little or no residents, not necessarily a city with ghosts. Pluto, Texas was discovered in 1894, and this was before Pluto, the planet, was discovered. So this means Pluto, Texas was possibly named after the Greek god, Pluto. It's time to head back home. Let's go. So now that we've had our road trip to Earth, Venus, and Pluto, what other cities can you find in the United States with the same name as planets and stars in the sky?
Greetings, Earthlings. This is Miss Tracy, and today we're going to learn about the colors and temperatures of stars. A star's temperature determines its color. The 7 spectral types are O, B, A, F, G, K, and M. M being the coolest at 3,500 Kelvin, and O being the hottest at 25,000 Kelvin.
Let's hear about the stars from someone who's seen them from space.
Hello, I'm Michael Barrett, NASA astronaut and lover of stars. I've been lucky enough to fly in space twice, and I've spent 212 magical days off the Earth, mostly on the International Space Station. I'm actually a medical doctor by training, and my passion is how the human adapts to space flight. It's pretty cool floating up in space, and what we really love to do is look at our Earth, our home planet, from space. However, long before this, I've always been really interested in stars and astronomy, and I really loved looking at the night sky from our farm in southern Washington state. Even as a teenager, I was building and using my own telescopes. There's so much amazingness about the night sky, so let me share some of my favorite things about that with you. The night sky is full of stars, which seem especially bright if you get away from city lights. Now, the daytime is full of starlight as well, but from one particular prominent star, the sun. The sun is our own star, and it's close enough that its light and energy dominate our environment. The sun holds us in its orbit, and it gives us the energy we need to make our planet a great place to live. But the sun is so bright that its light drowns out the other stars during the daytime. So if you want to see the other stars, you have to wait until nighttime when the sun is on the other side of the Earth from where you live or where you're looking. Now, to show you a little bit more about stars, I'm going to need the help of an old friend. Come on. This is a star map that I hung on my wall when I was 11 years old. Thank you, Mom and Dad, and thank you to National Geographic. A little bit of Scotch tape holding it together since it was on my bedroom wall, but still nicely functional. And one of the cool things is it shows these patterns of stars, the constellations. Now, throughout human history, people have imagined their own pictures in the sky, their own constellations. But about 100 years ago, a bunch of really smart people got together and they determined that there's 88 constellations that everybody can universally recognize and adopt as their own. That's the same as the number of keys on a piano. Coincidence? Learning some of the constellations is fun and easy, and it helps you find your way among the stars in the night sky. There are many star maps and star apps that can help you do this, and this helps you to connect with the stories behind the constellations. But the constellations and their stars do more than just fire our imaginations. They also help us find our way on the Earth. We can navigate over land and at sea by noting the position of stars relative to our horizon and what direction we have to look when we see them. We even use them when traveling in space. The space shuttle, for instance, had 2 star trackers that would help us determine our position at any given time. Because the Earth goes around the sun once each year, the stars look different with respect to Earth's horizon at different times of the year. So they help us mark the seasons too. So people have been looking up at the stars since there's been people. But the human eye is limited in the amount of light that we can actually collect. So for the last few centuries, we've had a new tool at our disposal, the telescope. Now, this is one of my favorite telescopes. It's about 6 inches in diameter, and that means it can collect a lot more light, hundreds of times more than the human eye, and then focus that to a point where we can magnify it in an eyepiece and see things much more close up. Now, for you telescope freaks out there, you might recognize this as a Russian Maksutov telescope. I was actually working in Russia at the time that I got this, and this is absolutely one of my favorite telescopes. I love spending time looking at stars and planets with this telescope, and really any telescope. So one of my favorite things to do is just to take a good pair of binoculars and look at a part of the sky that you can't really see any stars and see what you can see. Sun's out. Guess I'll have to wait till nighttime. Ah, there they are.
Countdown to takeoff. Into space we blast. Astronaut explorers. What if aliens fly past? We'll fly by constellations to nebulous destinations.
Have you ever heard of a nebula? A nebula is a cloud of dust and gases that sit in the middle of old stars and act like a nursery for new baby stars. Let's take a look at a few nebulas. Here's a picture of a dark Doodah nebula. I love that name. And here's a picture of the most famous nebula, Pillars of Creation, in the Eagle Nebula. Nebulas are beautiful, natural pieces of art, and although we can't create our own nebula in the sky up there, we can create our own nebula art with our own electronic devices, and it's extremely simple to do. All you're going to do is go to neonflames.com, begin creating your picture. Everything here is pretty straightforward, but I'll say that holding down your mouse or finger for a couple of seconds helps create a bolder, deeper colors. And if you mess up, you can press clear and start again. Once you're done creating your art, you can share it with friends, download it for yourself, and of course, make a new one.
I love sitting by the campfire and looking up at stars. Another thing that I like to do while camping is playing some music. Well, let's go ahead and learn the song Twinkle Twinkle Little Star using our ukulele. You'll need 3 chords. The first chord is C, shown here. Ready? C. Then you'll need F. Here's the chord for F, and this is what it sounds like. And then you need G7. Here's the chord for G7, and this is what G7 sounds like. Now let's go ahead and play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Good! Like with anything, it takes practice. So take your time, look at the chords, and have fun.
If you would like to learn more about stars and constellations, look up titles in our catalog at fortworthlibrary.org and pick up the titles that you find at curbside. We recommend titles like Space is Awesome, 101 Incredible Things Every Kid Should Know by Alice Harmon, Space, Did You Know? Amazing Answers to More Than 200 Questions by Sarah Krutas, and See the Stars by Ken Croswell. This book is especially great because it has 12 amazing stargazing activities that you can do for each month of the year. You can explore even more information at nasa.gov. The NASA website is filled with facts about the solar system, trips and adventures, and it's also many cool pictures and videos that you can watch. Thank you for watching Sky Full of Stories. We'll see you next time.